What's up, guys? Welcome back to the prep series. Thanks for everybody that's followed along or watched the prior videos. 19 weeks out today. It's Saturday, so that's 19 weeks on the dot. I'm going to do an overall prep update. I'll give some insight into the training that I just did. I just finished up my second leg day of the week, and then I have some questions that I'm going to answer as well. So firstly, prep update. I checked in with Justin Compton, my coach, earlier in the week. I checked in on Monday. So at that point, like a little more than 19 and a half weeks out, I guess you could say. And I was 260 flat. And he had told me to check in Sunday, or if my weight fell below 258, to keep an eye on it, and if it came below 258, to take pictures and check in with him. So yesterday was Friday, and yesterday I weighed in at 257. So I took some pictures, I sent them over to him, and immediately he hit me back and was like, tonight I want you to replace your final meal with an off-plan meal somewhere between, I think he said, somewhere between 14 to 1600 calories, something like that. And then didn't give me any other parameters. He said that he feels like, you know, obviously the metabolism is moving well. If things are moving this quick, I think the pictures look pretty good too. It's not like weight is just falling off me and I'm not looking better. I think I look much better pretty quickly. And that might sound awesome, like having your coach send you out for a cheat meal during prep, but to me it was a little bit of a mind fuck, if I'm being honest. I hired Justin last year at about 15 weeks out from a show, and we went the entire time without cheat meals. I did basically my whole rebound without cheat meals. And then I had them during a cruise in the off season. But to me, it just, initially I felt like in my gut, like that was not what I wanted to do, and like it would be detrimental. And I know that was just me being emotional, because as a coach, all the signs were there. And when I sent him my check-in that morning, I kind of had a feeling that he might say something like that, or at least that he was going to put a good amount of food back into the diet. So I needed to just kind of breathe and calm down and trust him, and, understand that this is kind of what comes with working and staying with your coach for a full year, and also being much bigger and much more muscular than the last time him and I were in prep together last year. So, I kind of just needed to accept that he has the plan and that this is the right direction to go in. So last night I replaced my final meal. I had 4 sushi rolls, nothing fried, no sauces or mayo or anything like that. So to be honest, it probably ended up being a little bit below what he wanted calorie-wise, but I just felt like it would be way more predictable and wreak less havoc on my stomach than going and getting like a burger and fries or something. So, and it was good. I didn't feel any issues with my stomach this morning. I didn't check my weight or visuals this morning. I probably will tomorrow, but yeah, that's where things are. Cardio hasn't changed. The diet hasn't changed, and the cycle hasn't changed. So not much. I'm just kind of plugging along, and the progress in terms of fat loss has happened pretty quickly. So that was why he kind of wanted to slow things down, put a meal back in, and hopefully bring my weight back up a bit. So we'll see, 2 days after tomorrow, what it looks like. Training wise, I just finished up legs. Like I said, pretty long, pretty grueling day. I'm all for it. It's probably my favorite day of the week. I'm realizing now, though, after being here for 2.5 hours, that I'm probably going to need to adjust some things the deeper into prep that I get. But fresh off a refeed meal and being as far out as I am, I still feel really good. So good training today. I'll share the clips. It's like glute and hamstring focused for the most part, or at least that's what I start with. So I start with a Smith machine hip thrust. I do these twice a week. The session earlier in the week is lighter weight, and I'm more so focused on just contracting really hard and squeezing really hard at the top to kind of simulate how I'm going to be flexing my glutes on stage. And it's almost, I'm trying to build in like some posing endurance where the squeezes at the top are long and deliberate. Not that this second session isn't that, but this second session I'm purposely trying to move a little bit heavier weight. So I'll do 3 sets there. You guys will see that. And that's like a movement that gets your glutes shortened or contracted, like I talked about. So then second movement after that, I go over to the pitch shark and I do a RDL movement, which then is going to kind of lengthen your glutes or stretch your glutes more so, hamstrings as well. So I do 2 sets there, and by then I'm pretty smoked, to be honest. I go over this seated hamstring curl. It is probably the best one that I've ever used. It's very similar and probably modeled after the original Flex ham tractor. And until I had used this one, I would have said that that was the best hamstring curl that I'd ever used. This is essentially the exact same thing, but with a little bit more flexibility or adjustability, I guess you could say, where you can kind of customize it a little bit better than that old school Flex one. I believe this is a Life Fitness. I'd have to look at the video, but I believe it's a Life Fitness, and I've never seen it anywhere else, but it's also named the Ham Tractor, so they didn't get very creative with renaming it. But this thing is awesome. I do 3 sets there, and then I kind of transition more so into quads. So I go over into this extension that you'll see, and this is a plate-loaded leg extension, which I normally don't love, just because they get so heavy in the shortened position where it's already difficult, and loading it with free weights, then I feel like it just puts a lot of load and a lot of stress on the knee joint itself. And being 32 years old, I can't really afford that anymore. So I've had to get creative, and you'll see I have this really thick, really heavy purple band on the extension, and it kind of gives it a more smooth strength profile where it's quite heavy from the beginning, but also being that I'm not using a lot of actual plate load or free weights, it never bothers my knees. And this was a really good setup to where, like I said, it's pretty even tension throughout. I think the band even lets off a little bit up at the top because it's not perfectly aligned with the line of pull at that point, which is what you want. And so I'm able to get really hard squeezes, and then once I kind of transition back into the negative part of the rep, the band kind of kicks back in and makes it difficult. So this is great. I do 2 sets here. Both of them go until failure, and then I will do some bottom partials on those. And then you'll see I finished with this hip press, and again, I gotta give credit to Counterculture Gym here in St. Pete. A lot of awesome equipment, a lot of stuff that I've never seen, and I've been all over the world. I've been in gyms all over the world. I've never seen this hip press anywhere else. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of most hip presses that I've ever used, but this one is excellent. So same idea here. I take that same heavy purple band and put it on there just to try to limit the amount of actual plates that I'm putting on there. On this, I only do 1 set. I have 4 100-pound plates on it, and then 2 regular 45-pound plates on it, plus the purple band. I think I got 17 on this one, which was 1 more than what I got last week. And then I finished with calves. Didn't record that, but you guys get the idea. I'm pretty much smoked after that. So I will put that full workout in the description below. So now, I'm 3 videos deep all three of the videos have a different workout that I've outlined in full, both with the clips and with the description. So if you guys are, trying to get an idea of how you might want to structure your training, that's a good place to start. And then I have some questions here that people wrote in. This person writes in, can you give me an example of how you dose orals in prep? So I will just give you guys my own personal experience, because in terms of coaching, everyone is different. And I typically base the use of orals with the person's like experience level and how muscular they are. So, there's people I've prepped, it was their first prep or their first enhanced prep, and they use little to no orals. There's people that are more advanced at the national or pro level, and it's going to look more complex than that. So I will just tell you, for me, I typically will bring like something like Anavar in somewhere around like 12 weeks out, just to kind of help training performance. I'll leave that in anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So that'll go in from 12 weeks out to anywhere from 8 to 6 weeks out. Around that same time, 8 to 6 weeks out, something like that, I'll bring in, and I'm pretty much replacing the Anavar at that point with Winstrol. And I also like Proviron. I like those two kind of around the same time. Anavar anywhere from 20 to 40, maybe 50 milligrams a week. And then similar with the Winstrol, you typically would do like 50 milligrams a day, or I would. Proviron, I would do about 50 milligrams a day up until maybe 2 weeks out. And I've seen an awesome visual return going higher dose Proviron with very limited side effects. So like 100 milligrams a day. I've seen that with me and with clients. Winstrol is kind of hit or miss. I think Winstrol at higher doses can bring a really dry, really nasty look, but also I've seen it mess people's stomachs up, and I've had that issue too. Like if I tried 100 milligrams a day, I had a little bit of an issue eating the amount of food I needed to eat then at the end of the prep to kind of fill back out. So I would keep an eye on that. And then depending on how advanced you are, again, you might see Halo go in. I've always used it like 2 or 3 weeks out, anywhere from like 10 to 30 milligrams a day. You don't need much. It's very potent. It can be very toxic as well. How do you deal with self-doubt or doubting your physique going into a show? I think everyone probably deals with this. I mean, I've heard even like the people at the highest level of the Olympia say that they deal with this. And I think it probably in large part has to do with, one, all the drugs that we're taking, and then two, how low our body fat is at the end and how high our output is. It just really changes the brain chemistry, and it can lead to very high highs and low lows. I know for me personally, I'm very up and down at the end of prep, like from an emotional standpoint. It can be literally like a minute to minute up and down roller coaster for me. So I just try to stay centered the best that I can. If you have good people in your corner, that definitely helps. I think in general, action helps the feeling of inadequacy. So, if you're feeling anxious or insecure about your posing, go practice your posing. But I think we all deal with this, especially you reach a point in prep where you have to be flat, and you start to really notice the body parts that are missing or the things that you want to improve for next time. And I think that's all very common. The most important thing is, like, one, don't let those emotions dictate your actions or your effort. And then another aspect of this is almost every prep I've had, by the time show day came around, I felt a lot of confidence. Typically, like, the food and reduction of cardio will start to bring your mood back to life and your confidence back to life at the very end. So by the time show day comes around, I always felt like pretty confident and pretty upbeat. So you just need to weather the storm while you're in it. I had put a picture on my Instagram to go along with asking 4 questions, and it was a picture of my back while I was in pretty good shape. And someone wrote in and said, how did you keep your waist so tiny? And I think it's just completely genetic, to be honest with you. I'd like to take credit for doing something special, but I think it's just totally genetic. I mean, every prep that I've done since 2017, I've made it a priority to practice vacuums, because I do vacuums in a handful of my front poses. And every prep I train my abs pretty consistently. Like right now I do abs 5 times a week, but I can tell you guys, like in the off season, that's not that I don't do any vacuums. Honestly, I very rarely, if ever, train my abs in the off season. And my waist gets pretty big. I mean, like this past year I got up to right around like 280, and like, you know, like if I put on like a pair of slacks to dress up to go to like a nice dinner or something, I'm pretty sure my pants were like 38 waist or 40 waist or something. So it gets big when I'm big, and then it just has always kind of come back to the same place when I diet. So I think it's just totally genetic. Have I ever used insulin in prep, as the final question? I have twice, and coincidentally or not coincidentally, those were the only 2 preps where I ever was very disappointed in the conditioning that I brought. So when you think about it, insulin is a storage hormone. Part of the action is that it lowers your blood sugar. And the idea, the times that I've done it, was that like, okay, I'm going to run like a higher carb day, and then because of that, I want my blood sugar to be low to kind of uptake these carbs. But both times that I did that in prep were the only 2 times that I ever looked back and was very disappointed in the conditioning that I brought. So I think, you know, even if you're doing high days, even if your coach has you doing cheat meals, I think all of the effort and reduction of food, the increase in output, the reduction in your body fat, all those things should have your body in a sensitive enough place to handle this food without adding exogenous insulin. Now, I think there's probably a place for it for the guys that are super like hyper muscular and have incredible metabolisms, to where even when you throw a, you know, 1,000 grams of carbs high day at them in prep and include fats to try to slow the transit, there are guys that will rip through that food and then end up lighter and looking flatter. In that situation, yeah, those guys are probably a candidate to use insulin in prep or during a peak week, and it would make sense. But for me, it's just never been good. So that's everything for this time, guys. I will be 18 weeks out at the next check-in. Like I said, thanks to everybody that checks out the prior videos. Thanks to everybody that checks out the podcast. Until next week, I'm out of here.